Welcome back, guys. I have another DIY for you. This one's going to be a Kirkland's dupe. So let's go ahead and get started. You're going to take the two frames, you're going to remove the backings from them, and you're going to just take off the stand part of it and the back. We're going to use the backings of them, so save those for later. So you just take your pliers. Some of them come off pretty easily. Some of them you have to kind of manipulate and pull them off differently. The little clips do have a little screw on them, so go ahead and get a little screwdriver, pop those off of there. Now if you don't find these frames, you can get two small frames, whatever size you want to make the bin, the basket or whatever. These are, I don't know, what, 4x6 I believe. So you can get two 4x6 frames, or you can just use some painter's sticks and kind of frame it out. And you can get some poster board and galvanize it, and then accordion it and put it in there, if that makes any sense. I'll probably do a tutorial on how to make like the galvanized metal like that. So then you're gonna go ahead and get those frames all cleared up. Like I said, we'll save the backings because we may use those later. I'm not 100% sure. And then we're going to take the painter sticks, you're going to measure it out to see how long or how tall you want the sides. And they have measurements, so make sure when you put them on there, you put the measurements on the inside so the numbers are inside and not showing. And then I went and I got my little miter box so that we could, saw those up. But you get the other sticks, you measure them out, and you cut two of those because we have two sides, so obviously. So you cut them both, measure them both out so you don't have to do double the work. And then you use your little miter box. I got this one at Harbor Freight, and I think it was like, I don't know, 13, 14 bucks, something like that. And the one that I got came with a saw. But I think they sell them individually too, and they're not that expensive. So you go ahead and you cut the sides off there. Excuse me, voiceovers are hard. I didn't realize how difficult this was going to be. There's noises in the background and whatnot. Anyway, so you're going to cut your paint sticks, and they're pretty simple to cut. They're not that thick, so you can cut them. If you don't have a miter saw, you can use you can just use any kind of little saw, or maybe a serrated knife. I don't know. That's kind of dangerous. But if you have some really good scissors, you can probably kind of cut through those. But, but the little miter saw is definitely a good investment if you're doing crafts like this. So I just went ahead and sanded the bottom down so it's not so rough. And so now you have your middle points of your two sides. So that's where your handle is going to go. So then you're going to measure out how big, like I said, again, how tall you want it. I think I misjudged how I wanted it. So I end up having to cut this again because I didn't like the height of it. But right now you're going to go ahead and measure out the two sides all the way out. So you're going to get, technically there should be 4. So what's going to end up happening is I'm going to cut these two, and then I have to measure out 2 more pieces and cut those up. So that's what I'm about to do. So while I'm sawing that, I'm just going to say welcome again. Thank you for watching. And if you haven't already, please subscribe. I'd love to grow my channel. I'd love to be able to give you guys more DIYs, more ideas. Again, these are just for inspiration. You don't necessarily have to use everything that I use. You can use whatever you have at home, especially now, with everything going on. You can't go out and shop, so improvise. I'll try my best to give you other options, but, this is just for inspiration, kind of give you an idea of what you could do. So again, I just went ahead and I cut the other 2 pieces down to size. But again, thank you. Man, this voiceover thing is really, really weird. I think about what I'm going to say and then I forget. So here we go. Subscribe, like this video. It really helps me out. So, okay, so those 2 pieces, actually 4 pieces, are done. think I had to like recut it because it didn't go all the way through. And I have like this little mini handsaw that I use. I'm out of the frame. I'm really sorry. This whole recording thing is kind of new to me, so please excuse the craziness of this video. It's all over the place, I know. I'm a little bit OCD, so all the little shavings and stuff kind of drive me nuts. And I just recently on Amazon purchased this little vacuum, so I'm excited so I can start using that. So this is the point where I realized that that handle in the middle was just a little bit too long for me. So I end up having to cut that middle piece down because I just didn't like the height of it. I thought it would just be too high. So I went ahead and I measured that out so that I can cut that down, and I did that for both sides. You know, it's trial and error, just showing you I make mistakes. Everybody does. It doesn't always work out, you know, measure twice. Sometimes I measure once and cut 5 times. So it's just a matter of, you know, you win some, you lose some, you learn as you go along. And I mean, I always use these little scrap pieces. I save them. I have a little box and I have like all the scrap pieces from my popsicle sticks and my painter sticks and, you know, any little boards that I cut up. I just save the little pieces because I end up using them later on in either different projects or like I'll test stain and stuff. So they come in handy so I don't have to mess up, you know, a whole painter stick or another piece of wood or whatever. So, all right. So we went ahead, we got that taken care of. I think I splintered it, so I had to fix it up there. And then you just take some sandpaper, sand it down, get it nice and smooth. And then we move on to the next piece, which is going to be gluing these pieces together. And I'm going to show you how I put them together here. So I used I'm standing it still, but I use wood glue and hot glue so that we can get that instant bond and then the long-term bond, because I think I'm just going to keep this. Usually when I make pieces, a lot of times if I don't have a place for them anymore, I'll take them apart and I'll, you know, reuse some of the pieces for something else. But I think I'm going to keep this one, so I did decide to use hot glue to kind of keep that together for longer. So again, we're going to put the sides together right now, and you're just going to take the longer piece with the little indentations on it. Those go in the middle, and I know a lot of times you end up cutting those off. So if you happen to have any of those left over from other projects, you can definitely, you know, glue a piece together and use that. I mean, it works out well. So here I'm gluing them together, and I feel like I'm babbling, but there's a lot of space here. Thank God I'm fast forwarding in the video, or else this would be like an hour-long video. But so you're gonna go ahead, you're gonna glue those pieces together to make your sides, and you know, hot glue and all the little hairs that stick out, and I'm cleaning off all the extra glue that kind of came off because doesn't paint very well if you do that. So here's the other piece here. Make sure that you put all the parts that have like the writing on them on one side, so that when you paint it, all those are on the inside and it's kind of uniform there. And I miss my nails. I had to cut all my nails down because I kept chipping them, and I got to the point where I had, you know, 2 or 3 really short ones and all the rest of them were long. So I ended up chopping them all off. But I need a manicure and a pedicure and my eyebrows done. It's just, this quarantine's really messing up. And I don't do a whole lot of, you know, manicure and pedicure. I get one like once a month and I just try to maintain it. But my eyebrows are ridiculous and I need a pedicure so bad. So that was a little side note there that you probably didn't need to know, but nonetheless, I was looking at my nails and I missed them. So we're finishing up this last piece. So then what you're going to do is you're going to end up, after doing this, you're going to work on the front panel and the back of it. So you're going to take the 2 frames and you're going to glue them together so that you can make the front panel of it. And again, I think I might have only used hot glue for this one because I use I use the Gorilla Glue hot glue, and it's so good. Like, it's the only glue that I like. And I have this little glue gun, and I need to buy a bigger one, but I just love Gorilla Glue, and it's really, like I said, the only hot glue that I'll buy. So now you have to measure out the back pieces. You're going to use 3 of the 5-gallon sticks, and you're going to measure them out. And I don't know what I was trying to decide here, but I was thinking. So, so I was trying to remember what I was thinking when I was doing this. But you're going to measure it out, and you can cut all 3 of them at the same time if you have the miter box. If not, whatever you use, obviously, is fine. I use my craft stick. That's just a leftover craft stick that I have there that I'm using to measure, but you can use a ruler, obviously, if you have one. I think my daughter had my ruler for her homework or for her e-learning work. So I couldn't find my ruler, so I used a craft stick because it's what I had. So we're going to go ahead and you're going to cut these 3 to do I guess it depends on how you use it, the back side of the box here. And this miter box came in so handy, and now that I'm putting my craft room together, I'm actually going to excuse me, screw it in to my workbench so that it doesn't move around like that, and it'll be much easier to use, because kind of holding the miter box and holding the pieces that you're sawing, it's a little bit difficult. So I'm going to go ahead and, because it has little holes so you can screw it in, so I'm going to do that. So you just sand down the sides, smooth them out. They're not too bad with the saw that I have. And again, make sure you have your print on the inside. And I think at first I was just going to glue them all together and make just like a solid panel. But then when I went to go put it on, I didn't like the way it looked. So I decided to put them onto the back of the frame with a little space in the middle. So it kind of had like a fence type of look. I don't know. So I glued the sides on there so that I could measure it out right and make sure that it's spaced out properly. Because I think what I realized was when I was going to put them on there, there was going to be like it wasn't going to be tall enough with just the 3 sticks. And I didn't want to have to go to the table saw and like saw a thin strip off of the box. I mean, off of the paint stick. So I just went ahead and decided to glue them on there with just a little bit of space in between. So what I do after I glue these sides on is I put one on the bottom, one on the top, and then I spaced out the one in the middle. Make sure you take off all that glue. You see I just glued that one on, and then make sure again that you put the wording, the ones that have words, on the inside so that you can't see them outside. And then I put the one on the top, I think. Is that what I do next? Yeah, I think I put it on the top so that I can get the spacing right for the one in the middle. So that way that it's even with the front piece. And then you put this one in the middle. I'm glad I caught it before I glued all 3 of them together, and the glue was still kind of warm. So it popped off rather easily. And so we put that one in the middle. And then just make sure those are nice and glued in there. And then it'll be time to put the dowel rod or the handle on the top. And the dowel rod that I used was one, I don't know, I got it a while back and I used it for something else, and it's been sitting in my basement. It's a little bit thicker. I don't know what the size of it is. Oh, I thought I was doing the handle. Ha, just kidding. So we're doing the bottom, and that is just a piece of foam board from the Dollar Tree. As you can see, it's like a scrap piece that I had left over from another project. I just measured out the inside of the box so that you can put the foam board on the inside instead of underneath. That way you can put some support. I'm just using my X-Acto knife and cutting that out. And this one I think is a little dull, so it was giving me a little bit of an issue as far as trying to get all the way through. Excuse me. So I had to go over it a couple of times, and I kind of tore it up a little bit there, but it's okay. It's going to be inside. You're not going to see it anyway. So If you have a good X-Acto knife, use that, or if you have really good scissors, you can use those too. So you go ahead and put that on the inside. Make sure it fits in there nice and tight. And then you're going to take some craft sticks, and you can get whatever size you have. You're just going to measure it out so that, excuse me, measure them out so you can put a bottom on there so that foam board doesn't fall out, and you can use scissors. I used 5 craft sticks, and that's the jumbo ones. So now I'm going to go ahead and put the dowel rod. Like I said, this is an old one that I had that I used for something else. It's a little bit thicker than just like the regular dowel rods from Dollar Tree, but you can definitely use those, especially if you're not going to move it around too much. I don't know the size of this dowel rod, but it's just a little bit thicker. So I went ahead and I cut that, measured it out and cut that so that it can fit in there. And this one was kind of hard to cut through. I don't know where I got it from, but it was kind of hard to cut through. So I went ahead, cut that, and went ahead and put it in there. I sanded it down, obviously, to smooth the edges, and I got some of that gunk off of it because it was painted white, and it was just, dirty. I'd cleaned it, but it had like stains and stuff on it. So went ahead and cleaned that off. And I think it was just a little bit too small. So I had to figure out a way to fit it in there. And it was giving me the flux, seriously. I don't know how I measured it wrong. I don't know if I, spread the 2 side pieces out too far or what, but it just was not working. So what I had to do was end up I tried super glue. I tried putting extra hot glue on there. I mean, it just wasn't working. So rather than, and I was going to delete all this so you guys didn't see me, messing it up. But I figured this was a learning moment. So what I ended up doing was I took a craft stick and I cut, I don't know if it was 1 or 2 little pieces, and I glued those to the end of the craft stick. See, I mean, I tried hot glue, I tried super glue, it just wasn't working. And hey, I'm human, like I said, so it ended up being a learning moment for you and me. So what I ended up doing was I cut up some little craft sticks, just a couple little pieces that were kind of, small enough to fit in there. And I stuck them on the edge of the dowel rod, and then I glued it in, just enough to fill that little gap up. And it worked fine. You can barely see it. It worked for me. I painted them, I stained them when I stained the rest of it, and it worked fine. So I thought at this point, I was like, oh yes, it worked. Yeah, it didn't work. So that's when I said, okay, I got to figure something out. And my brain was working, and I used a craft stick to clean that off. And I was like, aha, I can use a craft stick. So that's when I got the idea, was when I picked up that scrap craft stick to clean off the glue from there. I was like, oh, aha moment. That's what I'll do. So that's what I'm doing right now. See, and I was going to measure out another piece. And I was like, oh, no, let me just do this. So that's what I did. So that's that. Like I said, I mean, in crafting, you just never know. Things work, things don't work. So you just figure it out as you go along. I pulled all the hot glue off because some of it was stuck on there, and I had that crazy glue on there. And, you just do what you got to do. I sanded off all the extra pieces that were still stuck on the bottom, and move forward. So now I think I'm about to cut off the little pieces now. But there was so much glue. I put so much glue trying to get it to stick that I couldn't get it all off. So see, there's where I start to glue the little craft stick pieces on there. And I think it took 2 maybe. But when you're crafting, you try and figure it out. See, I just put a piece of craft stick, or maybe it was just 1. Oh, it was just 1. Okay. So I glued that on there and put it on in there, and it worked perfectly. And it stayed on there, no problem. Adjusted it, and ta-da, there you go. So I just made sure that that was sticking, and there you go. All right, So we clean up all the little excess glue on the side so that when we stain it, you know, it actually sticks. And then, I don't know what I'm doing right now. I'm sorry. It's been a while. I recorded this video like 3 weeks ago, and I just started putting it together. I couldn't figure out how to, I couldn't figure out how to edit it, and I finally found a program that works rather well. So now I'm staining it, and I'm just using the Waverly Antique Wax. But of course you can use, you know, if you have brown paint, shoe polish, you can water down some acrylic paint and make it into a stain. If you don't want it to be brown, obviously you can paint it, you know, whatever color you want to match your decor. I know white seems to be a really popular color. I don't have a whole lot of white decor. Sorry, I needed some water. I don't have a lot of white decor, but I think I'm gonna start putting, you know, little pops of white here and there. So, but this one, I liked the brown. I liked the picture, the original inspiration picture. I liked how that looked, so I went with the brown. And I didn't paint all the way, like on the inside. I think I might have painted the first, like that first paint stick, and then I just left the rest of it. But I might end up, you know, once I start actually using it, I think I'm going to paint it all the way through or stain it all the way through. Sorry for that noise in the background. There's 8 of us in this house. There's no, there's never really any quiet. There's always something going on. So excuse any background noises that you hear, such as my life. I think the brush was like, I don't know if that was a brush or if there was like glue stuck to it, and I was trying to get that out when I was poking at the thing. So you just make sure you get all the little, you know, crevices and whatnot. And I wasn't going to paint or stain the front of it because it's already kind of a brown wood looking color. But I think I ended up staining it because I didn't like the contrast. It kind of looked weird and it didn't really match that well. So I think I ended up doing all of it. And you know, you have to get that extra glue off or else the stain just isn't going to take. So yeah, I stained this all up. And like I said, you can paint it any color you want. And this wax does take a while to dry. It's not like an instant dry. And then this handle, because it was painted previously, the stain just didn't want to take. And it was kind of frustrating me. So I had to put a thin coat on there and then let that dry. And come back and put another coat on there because it just wasn't. It looks like it's staying, but it wasn't drying. And I was getting annoyed because I wanted to hurry up and finish recording. And I tried blow drying it. It didn't work. So I ended up having to like stop and let it sit for, I think I might have let it sit overnight, and I came back the next day and did the other coat because it just kept kind of like wiping off. So like I said, I only did the first stick, but you can, you know, if you want to get more coverage or whatever, you can do all the way through. I was going to stain them before I put them, you know, before I glued them together. But sometimes the stain makes it hard for the glue to stick. So I usually opt out if I'm going to use stain. Now, if I'm going to paint, then I would have just painted them, no problem. But something with, you know, the stain, because it's kind of oily, it doesn't stick right. So I prefer, if I'm going to stain, I just kind of glue it together and then I stain it. But if I'm going to paint, a lot of times I'll paint before I glue. So a lot of times I'll pre-paint everything for my crafts. So when you're seeing it, I'm like, you know, everything's already painted. So I'm just now just seeing, this is when I think I realized the paint, it hadn't dried. I mean, the stain hadn't dried yet, and I just left it alone. Now I'm just making sure I get all the little nooks and crannies there, giving it another little coat because I think it was a little bit too light for me. I wanted it just a little bit darker. So I went through and I put another coat in there because, like I said, it was too light. And, you know, you can see the spots where the stain isn't taking just because of the glue. So I probably should have been a little bit more careful with the glue, but such is life. It looks fine. This is when I decided, you know what, I'm going to go ahead and stain the front because it was just too light for me. And I wanted it to look more like the inspiration piece. Sorry for that dead air there. So I stained all that. I think I only gave that one coat because it was already a little bit of a darker brown. So I think I only gave that one coat. And just be real careful if you do decide to do that, that you don't get it on the metal. Excuse me. You can probably just take them out and stain it without the metal in there to guarantee that you don't get anything in there. But I was just doing what I had to do. See, that white was just, it was so annoying. Every time I went to go brush it again, it would come off. So I left it. And this staining process is taking forever. I mean, I don't know what else to say at this point. But I hope everyone is staying safe during this quarantine and not going out unless you really, really have to. My husband and I had to take another trip to the grocery store because when we went this last time, there was nothing. They had no meat, no bread again. So anyway, so this is how it looks all done. And I decorated it with some flowers. You can definitely just put whatever you want in there.